You don't see reality, you reflect it. That might sound absurd at first, but the moment you understand it, really understand it, everything changes. Most people think life happens to them. The failed relationships, the job that never quite fits, the dreams that keep slipping just out of reach. So they scramble, adjust, chase, and perform, believing that change is something you make happen out there. But quantum physics quietly says otherwise. It tells us that until something is observed, it exists only as a field of probabilities. Nothing is fixed until you look at it. That means your attention, your perception, your very awareness is not just witnessing life, it's shaping it. So what if your entire reality, the people, the events, the patterns, weren't just happening by chance, but were being collapsed into form by your consciousness? What if the frustrations you keep meeting are actually mirrors of the frequency you're unconsciously living in? Not punishment, just feedback. Reality is responding to you. And the question is, what is it responding to? If you've ever wondered why life keeps circling back to the same places, why you keep attracting the same kind of partner, ending up in the same job dynamics, feeling the same emotional cycles no matter how much you try to change, here's the uncomfortable truth. It's not the world, it's the signal you're sending. Most people spend their lives rearranging the surface of things. They change cities, switch jobs, leave relationships, and start new ones. It gives them a brief sense of hope, like maybe this time something will finally feel different. But before long, the same emotions creep in, the same fears, insecurities, or invisible pressure. And they wonder why change never sticks. Why does the new thing start to feel a lot like the old thing, just dressed in different clothes? This is where most people get stuck, thinking their problem is the outer world. But in quantum terms, the outer world is nothing more than the collapsing of infinite probabilities into a single experience, based on the observer. And you, whether you realize it or not, are always observing, not just with your eyes, but with your beliefs, your nervous system, your emotional signature. You are broadcasting a frequency every second of the day, and the quantum field, what you might call reality, is matching that frequency, delivering experiences that confirm it. Not because the universe is cruel, because it's consistent, because it's listening, because it's mirroring. Here's where it gets wild. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. Not what you consciously say you want when you're motivated and focused, but what your subconscious believes is true when you're not even paying attention. That means your reality isn't being shaped by your vision board or your affirmations. It's being shaped by your deepest emotional assumptions. If, at the core of your being, you believe you're not safe, not worthy, not seen, then life will reflect that, again and again. Not to punish you, but to show you. That's the power of the observer effect. When you begin to realize that your internal state is projecting outward and shaping what appears to be the external world, it's not a metaphor, it's not just philosophy. It's quantum mechanics. Observation collapses the wave. Your awareness calls form into being. This is not a poetic idea. It's the foundational strangeness of quantum physics, where particles don't have a defined state until they're observed. Consciousness doesn't just perceive, it participates. And that means surface-level change is almost useless if you're still living in the same frequency underneath it. You can change your haircut, your goals, your to-do list, but if your underlying signal remains fear, doubt, and inadequacy, then your life will keep looping through the same patterns, because the field only has one job: match the broadcast. Some things can't be shared openly here, but inside our free newsletter, Insights Academy, we go deeper into these quantum dynamics, and we've just made a limited-time copy of the Kabbalion available when you sign up through the link in the description. Once you grasp this, you start to understand why the same arguments, triggers, and emotions show up in your life. It's not because you're cursed, it's because something inside you is still calling them in, vibrationally, energetically, unconsciously. That's why change feels so hard, because we've been taught to fight shadows on the wall instead of turning to face the projector. But the projector is you, your emotions, your expectations, your interpretation of what things mean. You're the one collapsing the possibilities into form. The field doesn't care what you say you want. It responds to what you deeply believe to be true about yourself, about the world, and about what you deserve. And that realization, while uncomfortable, is the doorway to everything. Because if reality is mirroring your internal state, and you're willing to change that state, then everything else can change too. But not through willpower, through frequency, through attention, through becoming conscious of the unconscious. Most people walk through life like actors on a stage, reading lines they didn't write, trying to impress an audience that isn't even paying attention. They say the right things, set the right goals, even speak positively about their future. But deep down, there's a silent signal humming beneath the surface: doubt, fear, scarcity, or a quiet expectation of disappointment. And no matter what they say on the outside, it's that frequency the universe listens to. This is why the observer effect is so radical. It tells us that what you expect has more power than what you say. It's not about tricking the universe with affirmations. It's about noticing the signal you're actually broadcasting when no one's watching, when you're tired, stressed, afraid. That's the moment your true frequency reveals itself. And more often than not, it's that unconscious pattern that's shaping your life, not your conscious intentions. Reality doesn't run on surface talk. It runs on resonance. That means the electromagnetic signature of your body, your emotional baseline, your unconscious beliefs, the narrative running in your mind, acts like a tuning fork, vibrating out into the quantum field. And just like a tuning fork causes nearby matter to vibrate in harmony with it, your field calls back whatever matches. So, when you're feeling powerless, you'll start to see more situations that confirm your lack of power. When you feel invisible, people will overlook you. When you expect rejection, it finds you. Not because you deserve it, but because that's what you've unconsciously ordered from the quantum menu. This is why true change starts not with fixing the outside, but with observing the inside. But that's where most people stop, because looking within requires honesty. It demands that you stop blaming others for the loops in your life and start tracing them back to their source. And the source is almost always emotional, energetic, unconscious. You've been taught to seek answers in the external world, in books, in podcasts, in coaches. And those things can be useful, but none of them will change the fact that your inner state is the blueprint from which your life is constructed. The observer effect doesn't wait for permission. It mirrors you relentlessly, not to punish you, but to wake you up. And here's where it gets personal. The pain in your life isn't just unfortunate, it's precise. It's not random. It's the exact signal your consciousness is radiating, reflected back through the filter of your experiences. The universe isn't trying to hurt you, it's trying to show you. Your repeated struggles are not a sign of failure. They're messages, waiting to be decoded. When you begin to see reality as a living feedback loop, something fundamental shifts. You stop being a victim. You stop endlessly chasing fixes. You begin to understand that the world isn't broken, it's responsive. And the signal it responds to isn't your effort, it's your energy. You can work hard every day, stay disciplined, and still struggle, because effort without frequency is like screaming into the wind. It makes noise, but it doesn't move anything. Frequency, on the other hand, is quiet. It's subtle. It's invisible, but it shapes everything. When you start changing the energy you live in, the thoughts you dwell on, the emotional home you return to, the way you see yourself, the world around you begins to rearrange. Not instantly, not all at once, but unmistakably. And this is what most people never realize. The universe doesn't care what you want. It reflects what you are. And what you are is determined by the beliefs you hold and the emotions you feed. Not once in a while, but every single day. Your reality is tracking your frequency like a GPS. Shift the signal, and the route begins to change. But to shift it, you first have to see it. You have to stop blaming the mirror and start asking, what part of me is this reflecting back? Not from a place of guilt, but from power, from awareness. Because awareness collapses the wave. When you become aware of the unconscious pattern, you're no longer controlled by it. And that's when the field starts responding differently, because you are showing up differently. The mirror doesn't lie, but it doesn't judge either. It just reflects. That's the power of the observer effect, and that's why it changes everything. Most people think life is silent until something dramatic happens. But in truth, reality is speaking to you all the time. Every awkward conversation, every delay, every success, every loss, it's all feedback. But the trick is, we're rarely listening. We're too busy reacting, judging, or distracting ourselves to hear what reality is actually echoing back. The observer effect isn't just a cool science trick. It's a mirror that doesn't blink. In quantum physics, an electron only takes a definite form when it's observed. Until then, it exists in a state of potential, waves of possibility, all waiting to collapse into form. That means consciousness, the act of noticing, the quality of attention, doesn't just watch life unfold. It defines which version of life you get. So here's the hard truth. Your life is not a random sequence of events. It's a custom response to your most consistent state of being. Your beliefs are instructions to the quantum field, and that field listens without emotion, without judgment. It simply reflects. You don't get what you want, you get what you are willing to energetically host. And this is where the cracks begin to show for so many people, because we've been taught to fix things on the surface. We change partners, but don't examine the attachment wounds beneath. We leave jobs, but carry the same story of inadequacy into the next. We take action, set goals, build strategies, yet the outcomes feel strangely familiar. Like the scenery changes, but the story stays the same. That's not failure, that's feedback. When your internal state doesn't shift, your external world can't either, not in any lasting way. You can white-knuckle your way through a transformation. You can even get temporary results. But sooner or later, the frequency you live in, the identity you return to, pulls everything back, like gravity. That's why so many people feel like they're living on repeat. They are, not because life is cruel, but because life is calibrated to your consciousness. And here's where it gets subtle. It's not just about your thoughts. It's not about saying nice things to yourself or pretending to be happy. The field isn't responding to the words in your head. It's responding to the charge behind them, the emotional signal, the subconscious narrative. You can say, "I am confident," all day long. But if you're still afraid of being seen, your signal is, "I'm not safe." And that's what gets mirrored back. This is where pain becomes your teacher. Every difficult moment, every relationship trigger, every setback. It's not just something to endure. It's a portal. It's showing you the parts of yourself that are still vibrating at frequencies you say you want to outgrow. Most people numb those signals. They bury them in entertainment, food, overworking, or blame. But if you can learn to observe them without judgment, they become maps. Every time something in your external life stings, ask yourself, what belief is this showing me? What expectation is being mirrored back? Not to shame yourself, but to see clearly. Because clarity collapses confusion. When you see the signal you're sending, you can start to change it. And the moment you shift the signal, even slightly, the field responds. It may not be instant, but it is inevitable. Because the quantum field is loyal to energy, not effort. You don't have to try harder. You just have to become clearer, more aligned, more honest. This is the work. Not controlling life, but listening to it. Watching your reactions, tracing your triggers, noticing the emotional residue that lives beneath your habits. Life is a mirror, and the observer effect is the mechanism that makes that mirror active. It's not theoretical. It's deeply personal. You are observing yourself into form every moment of every day. When you finally accept that your reality is an echo of your inner world, you stop fighting symptoms and start listening for signals. You realize that nothing is against you, only trying to get your attention. And attention, directed with awareness, is the most powerful creative force on this planet. Because the observer doesn't just see reality, the observer creates it. You can't outwork your frequency. That's the hidden truth no one talks about in the hustle and grind culture. You can set goals, optimize your schedule, say affirmations in the mirror, and still feel like nothing truly changes. That's because reality isn't responding to your effort. It's responding to your energetic signature. And your signature is written by your beliefs. But here's the part most people miss. Beliefs aren't just thoughts you repeat in your head. They're emotional imprints buried deep in your subconscious, encoded through repetition, trauma, childhood experience, and cultural programming. Beliefs shape perception, and perception is the lens through which you collapse reality from wave to particle. That's the observer effect at work, not just scientifically, but experientially. Your life is shaped by the meaning you assign to what you see, and that meaning is filtered through your beliefs. So when you walk into a room and feel judged before anyone says a word, that's not intuition, it's projection. When you expect things to go wrong and they do, it's not bad luck, it's confirmation. These aren't just stories in your head. They're electromagnetic frequencies that instruct the quantum field on how to respond. What you believe becomes the pattern your reality obeys. Think of it this way. Every belief sends out a frequency. I'm not enough vibrates at a different frequency than I am worthy. Life is hard emits a different signal than I am supported. The field doesn't care which signal you send. It simply matches it. Not because it's punishing or rewarding you, but because it's mirroring. This is not karma, it's resonance. Your beliefs build your electromagnetic field, and that field determines what comes into your experience. That's why two people can walk through the same city, meet the same people, face the same challenges, and yet have entirely different outcomes. One sees opportunity, the other sees threat. One believes they're worthy, the other is still trying to earn it. And the quantum responds accordingly. Now here's where transformation begins, not with control, but with awareness. You can't fake a belief. You can't mask it with positivity or bypass it with spiritual fluff. The field knows. Your nervous system knows. Your subconscious knows. And until you bring those deep-rooted beliefs into the light of awareness, they'll continue running the show. So how do you shift them? You observe. You watch your reactions, your patterns, the stories that repeat. You don't shame them. You study them. That's the real use of the observer effect. Not to manipulate outcomes, but to become conscious of the unconscious forces shaping your world. When you see a belief clearly, it begins to loosen. Its grip weakens. And from that space, you can choose again. Repetition is how beliefs were formed. Repetition is how they get rewired. But it's not enough to just repeat new affirmations. You need emotional resonance. You need to feel them, to embody them. That's why change happens from the inside out, not the outside in. When you embody the belief, I am safe, the world stops feeling hostile. When you embody, I am enough, you stop chasing proof of it. The observer effect isn't about bending the universe to your will. It's about aligning your inner world so precisely that the universe has no choice but to respond in kind. And here's something that will reframe everything. The most painful experiences in your life were not punishments. They were reflections, invitations to examine what you've been broadcasting beneath your conscious awareness. The rejection, the abandonment, the chaos, it all had a frequency. Not to blame you, but to awaken you. To shake you out of unconscious creation and into conscious alignment. When you realize this, you stop feeling like a victim of circumstance and start becoming the creator of it. You understand that the world doesn't need to change for you to be free. You do. And that kind of freedom, emotional, energetic, and spiritual, is the foundation of true power. Because once you align your beliefs with your highest truth, the external world has no choice but to follow. The field mirrors the frequency, always, without exception. There's a language far older than words, and every single one of us speaks it, whether we realize it or not. It's the language of emotion. And if beliefs are the blueprint, then emotions are the electricity running through it. They carry the charge. They transmit the signal. They tell the quantum field what's real for you, regardless of what you say, hope, or wish for. This is where the observer effect goes deeper than intellectual understanding. You can know everything there is to know about how energy works, how consciousness affects reality, and how quantum physics breaks the rules of logic. But none of it matters If your body is still broadcasting fear, resentment, or shame, because the field isn't responding to your thoughts alone, it's responding to the frequency underneath them. And emotion is frequency in motion. When you suppress an emotion, you don't silence it, you store it. It doesn't just vanish into thin air. It sinks into the body, into the cells, into the nervous system, and begins to inform your baseline frequency. That unprocessed grief you never let yourself feel, it becomes a silent magnet for abandonment. That deep well of anger you've buried under politeness, it becomes resistance, frustration, or burnout that shows up in every area of your life. Your emotions are not random responses. They're messengers. And more than that, they're architects. This is why the same pattern keeps playing out, even when you've changed your habits, your environment, your friends. You're trying to build a new reality on top of an emotional signature that still says, "I am unsafe," or "I am not worthy," or "I am alone." The universe doesn't read your resume or your vision board, it reads your emotional state. And that's not to say your emotions are wrong. Quite the opposite. They're sacred, but only if you're willing to feel them fully without being consumed by them. When you become the observer of your emotions, curious, compassionate, present, you begin to transmute them. Not suppress, not indulge. Transmute. You let the emotion rise, deliver its message, and dissolve. That's how you change your frequency. Not by forcing yourself to be positive, but by becoming emotionally honest. Here's the irony. Most of us were never taught how to feel. We were taught how to function, how to smile when we're dying inside, how to push forward when our soul is screaming to stop. We've confused numbness for resilience, but numbed out people don't manifest aligned lives. They repeat inherited ones. Not because they're bad or broken, but because they're stuck in an emotional freeze, cut off from the very power that could shift everything. This is why emotional integration is not optional. It's foundational. If you want to shift your external world, you have to meet yourself in the internal one. Feel what you've been running from. Name the emotion. Sit with it. Let it show you what it's been trying to say. Most of the time, the pain you feel isn't because of what happened. It's because you haven't allowed yourself to process what happened. And once you do, something incredible occurs. The emotional charge begins to dissolve. The frequency starts to change, and the field around you takes note. You're no longer broadcasting the same survival-based signal. You're no longer reacting, you're observing. And from observation, you reclaim choice. This is what it means to be energetically sovereign. You don't avoid your emotions. You don't make them wrong. You learn from them. You realize that even your triggers are sacred. They reveal the edges of your healing. And every time you lean into a trigger rather than push it away, you unlock a new layer of freedom. The kind of freedom that doesn't depend on circumstances, but radiates from the inside out. This is why, in quantum terms, your inner world is the cause. Your external reality is only ever the effect, and the bridge between them is emotion. Learn to speak that language fluently, and you won't just understand how the field works. You'll begin to rewrite the code it runs on. Because the truth is, life isn't trying to punish you. It's trying to show you what you still believe. It's trying to reflect the parts of you that are still holding pain, fear, and separation. Not so you can suffer, so you can heal. But the healing only begins when you choose to feel. And through that feeling to consciously observe what's really going on beneath the surface. That's the work. It's not always glamorous. It's rarely comfortable. But it's the only thing that truly shifts the signal you send and the reality that mirrors it back. There's a moment in every awakening where you realize the hardest truth of all. You've been the one holding the pen this entire time. Not the government, not your parents, not your partner, you. And while that truth can feel like a punch to the gut, it's also the most liberating realization you'll ever have. Because if your unconscious energy helped create your current reality, then your conscious energy can recreate it. But first, let's get real about something. For most people, this idea that you create your reality feels like blame. You're saying, I manifested my trauma, my abuse, my losses. No. Not consciously, and not as punishment. But in the same way that a thermostat doesn't punish a room for cooling down, it simply responds to the temperature it's given. The field responds to your energetic baseline. That's not your fault. It's your programming. But once you're aware of it, it becomes your responsibility. This is where the shift begins, from passive victim to active observer, and eventually, deliberate creator. It starts by stepping out of the blame game, not just toward others, but toward yourself. What happened to you was not okay, but what you do with that pain now, that's where your power lives. And the observer effect doesn't work by fixing the past. It works by changing your relationship to it. Every belief you've internalized about love, safety, success, worthiness, was shaped by the experiences you didn't choose. But if those experiences still define you, then they're still observing you. They're still collapsing your future through the lens of your past. And that's the real prison. Not the pain itself, but the loop it locks you into. To shift that loop, you must become a different observer, not a more positive one, a more conscious one. You start to see that life isn't happening to you. It's responding to you. And suddenly, even your triggers become tools. That fight with your partner, a reflection of your unresolved abandonment. That missed opportunity, a mirror of the belief that says you're not ready. The pattern isn't the problem, it's the portal. This shift from victim to creator doesn't mean denying your emotions or bypassing pain with empty affirmations. It means turning toward those emotions and asking, what is this showing me about what I still believe? Then, without judgment, you upgrade the belief. Not with your mind, but with your frequency. That means feeling safe in your body, grounded in your truth, and unattached to the outcome. That's what the quantum field responds to. Not what you think, but who you are. And this isn't just spiritual poetry, it's biology. Studies in epigenetics have shown that your beliefs can literally turn genes on and off. Your electromagnetic field, which is strongest in the heart, communicates with the environment around you constantly. This isn't metaphor, it's measurable, which means every time you choose to shift your emotional state, to observe with awareness instead of react with fear, you change your field, you change your biology, you change your life. But here's the catch. Being a conscious creator requires more than moments of insight. It requires consistency, and that's where most people fall short. They have the realization, they feel the breakthrough, but they don't sustain the shift. Why? Because the old identity is magnetic. The victim role may be painful, but it's familiar. It's predictable. It keeps you safe until it doesn't. Until staying there costs you your aliveness, your expansion, your future. The truth is, your old identity will fight to survive. It will whisper things like, "This is just how I am," or "That's too unrealistic," or "People like me don't change." But those aren't truths. They're habits, neural patterns, emotional set points. And the only way to rewire them is to stop arguing for your limitations and start choosing a new state of being, over and over again, even when it's uncomfortable, especially then, because real power isn't loud, it's quiet. It's the decision to observe your fear without obeying it, to feel your doubt and still act from your higher self, to watch your triggers arise and choose not to collapse into them. This is what quantum mastery looks like. Not perfection, but presence. The moment you stop outsourcing your reality to the external world and start seeing it as a reflection of your own state, everything begins to shift. Life becomes a feedback loop, not a battlefield. You stop trying to control the outcome and start aligning with the frequency that naturally attracts what's meant for you. You stop trying to force reality and you begin to listen to it. And that's where sovereignty begins. Not in domination, but in awareness. Not in control, but in coherence. The field is always listening. The question is, what are you broadcasting? At some point, the lines blur between the spiritual and the scientific, and what you're left with is something far more intimate. Feedback, not metaphors, not theories, but a direct moment-to-moment conversation between you and the field around you. That conversation isn't verbal, it's vibrational. And the more you listen to it, the more fluent you become in a language no one ever taught you. the language of energy. This is where you stop trying to manipulate outcomes and start to work with the source code. This is where you become what we call a mirror master. A mirror master doesn't run from contrast. They decode it. They don't panic when life gets uncomfortable. They pay attention, because discomfort is just energy, misalignment calling you home. Something's out of sync. Something in your internal broadcast isn't matching your external reality. And instead of blaming the reflection, the mirror master adjusts the source, themselves. But not by force, by frequency. That's the power most people never learn they have. Let's be clear. The mirror master isn't a guru, a saint, or someone who floats through life in perfect peace. They still experience fear, anger, sadness, and doubt. The difference is, they don't identify with it. They witness it. They ask, what's this showing me about the energy I'm holding? They use emotion as a compass, not a curse. And by doing so, they stop reacting and start responding. Not from programming, from presence. Living in conscious feedback means understanding that reality is always mirroring you back to yourself, not to shame you, but to guide you. That argument with your partner, a reflection of where you still abandon your voice. The job that drains you, a signal you're out of alignment with your purpose. The financial block that keeps repeating, a feedback loop showing you the beliefs you're still carrying about worthiness, scarcity, or safety. None of it is random. None of it is punishment. It's a mirror, asking, who are you being? This isn't always comfortable, and it's not supposed to be, because mirrors don't flatter, they reflect, and that reflection gets sharper the more conscious you become. It shows you where you're out of integrity, where you're still hiding, where you're still outsourcing your power, but it also shows you your brilliance, your breakthroughs, your capacity to hold more love, more peace, more expansion. The mirror reflects it all. And the moment you stop running from what it shows you, everything begins to shift. You start to move differently. You speak from a deeper truth. You stop chasing validation and start living in resonance. You no longer beg life to love you. You align with the version of you that already knows they're lovable. That shift doesn't just change your vibe, it changes your world. Because once your internal broadcast is coherent, meaning your thoughts, feelings, and actions are in harmony, the field has no choice but to match it. That's not spiritual bypassing. That's quantum law. But coherence isn't about perfection. It's about congruence. You're allowed to feel messy. You're allowed to be afraid. But what are you doing with that emotion? Are you feeding it? Or are you observing it? Are you collapsing into the old self that reacts from fear? Or are you holding the frequency of the new self that responds with awareness? The difference between those two is the difference between staying stuck in a loop and moving into a timeline you've never lived before. Living as a mirror master requires one more thing: humility. The understanding that you don't always know what's best, and that the universe may show you things you don't want to see because it loves you enough to wake you up. Sometimes the loss is the mirror. Sometimes the trigger is the gift. Sometimes the delay is protection. And when you live in relationship with the mirror, you stop resisting what is. You start listening to what it's telling you. And then you adjust. This level of self-responsibility is radical. It dismantles victimhood. It obliterates blame. It demands you show up to your own life like a conscious participant instead of a passive observer. But once you do, something beautiful happens. The quantum field starts responding in ways that feel magical, but aren't. They're simply a reflection of your coherence, your clarity, and your decision to stop broadcasting from your wounds and start broadcasting from your truth. Most people never reach this point. They stay stuck in reaction, blaming the reflection, never realizing it's responding to them. But for those who do, who dare to become mirror masters, the game of life completely changes. Reality is no longer something to survive. It becomes something to sculpt. You become the artist, and your frequency is the brush, the canvas, infinite potential. And the masterpiece you create isn't just for you. It becomes a signal to others, a reflection they didn't know was possible. That's how awakening spreads, not by convincing people with words, but by embodying a frequency they can feel. The mirror never lies. but it will reflect whatever truth you're willing to hold. So the question is, what are you ready to see? There comes a moment when you can no longer ignore the pattern. The faces change, the cities change, the jobs, the relationships, the goals. But somehow, the same feeling returns. Disappointment dressed in new clothes, pain wearing a different name. It's easy, almost automatic, to blame the world, to believe you're cursed, unlucky, or simply not cut out for the life you dream of. But what if the real issue isn't the life you're living? It's the consciousness you're living it from. What if the world isn't happening to you, but responding to you? Not in a moral sense, not as punishment or reward, but as reflection. This is where the old identity begins to crack. This is where the victim dissolves, and the quantum creator begins to emerge. Being a victim isn't about weakness. It's a survival strategy, one born from real trauma, real pain, real abandonment. It's the part of you that learned to anticipate disappointment so you wouldn't feel blindsided. It's the voice that says, "Don't expect too much, and you won't get hurt." But here's the paradox. When you expect nothing, you unconsciously create more of the same. Not because you're bad, not because you're broken, but because your frequency keeps broadcasting the belief, "I am not safe, I am not supported, I am not enough." And the quantum field, which has no ego, no morality, no judgment, simply mirrors that broadcast back to you with precise, painful accuracy. It's not punishment, it's resonance. To shift from victim to creator, you must first make the most terrifying move of your life. Take full responsibility, not for what happened to you, but for how you've been unconsciously carrying it forward. That's the difference. The victim says, "This happened to me, and now I'm defined by it." The creator says, "This happened to me, and now I decide what it means." That shift isn't intellectual, it's vibrational. It's the moment you stop trying to control the outer world and begin mastering the inner one. People hear, "You create your reality," and think it means snapping your fingers and making millions appear. But true creation isn't about fantasy, it's about alignment. It's not about manipulating the quantum field into giving you what you want. It's about becoming the version of you who no longer needs to chase it. When you become it, the field reflects it, not as a reward, but as recognition. The real alchemy starts when you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this showing me about what I still believe?" That heartbreak, was it showing you where you still settle for less than you deserve? That rejection, was it highlighting the part of you still seeking external approval? That financial struggle, was it mirroring a belief in scarcity inherited from generations who never had the chance to question it? These aren't just unfortunate events, they're messages from the mirror, and the creator listens. None of this is easy, because stepping into creation means grieving the comfort of blame. It means letting go of the familiar story that made sense of your pain. It means seeing your suffering not as something that made you a victim, but as something that made you powerful. That reframing, radical as it is where healing actually begins. And here's the part no one tells you. Your past doesn't disappear when you shift into creation. It just stops controlling you. The pain might still echo, but it doesn't dictate your future. The scars don't vanish. They become symbols of your strength. That's the beauty of this work. It doesn't bypass emotion. It transmutes it. It turns the weight of your story into the fuel for your freedom. Once you start to live from that space, where every trigger becomes insight, where every emotion is data, where every experience is a reflection, you become deeply empowered. Not in a performative, motivational way, but in a grounded, embodied, quantum way. You begin to walk through life with a different frequency, one that doesn't say, "Look what they did to me," but instead, "Look what I've made from what happened. Look who I chose to become." That energy is undeniable. It changes how people respond to you. It alters opportunities. It rewires timelines. Because you're no longer a signal of past pain. You're a frequency of present power. And if you've made it this far in the video, you're already awakening. You're not like most people. Most people won't even entertain the idea that their life is a mirror. Most people would rather stay in the illusion of control while complaining about chaos. But not you. You're here reading this, questioning everything. And that alone is evidence that something in you already knows the truth. Your choice to step into creation isn't just personal, it's generational, it's ancestral. It breaks cycles, it heals timelines. Because when you change your frequency, you don't just alter your own life, you alter the resonance that others feel around you. That's the true impact of becoming a quantum creator. It ripples, it echoes, it liberates. When you finally realize that life is not happening to you but responding to you, everything changes. The question is no longer, how do I fix the world around me? But instead, who am I being right now? And what is that self-generating? This is the heart of the observer effect. The moment you become aware of the awareness itself, the game shifts. Life becomes less about control and more about coherence. You stop forcing outcomes and start aligning with them, not through effort, but through resonance. This isn't about mystical thinking or spiritual bypassing. This is about frequency, perception, and conscious participation in the quantum dance of reality. And once you get it, not just mentally but viscerally, you'll never see your reality the same again. Living the observer effect means waking up to your default settings. It means catching the subtle emotional loops playing under the surface of your day. That flash of resentment, that quiet self-criticism, that anxious urgency to prove something, they are all signals. Not of your failure, but of where your energy still flows by habit instead of intention. You begin to treat your emotions not as problems, but as pointers. What am I broadcasting right now? What am I asking the quantum field to mirror back to me? These aren't just theoretical questions. They become the compass by which you navigate your life. The old model of change demanded willpower, repetition, discipline. But the new model, the quantum model, is about becoming. It's about stepping into the version of yourself who already resonates at the frequency of the life you're calling in. Not by pretending, not by faking it, but by gradually peeling back the layers of misaligned identities you've worn for survival and returning to the signal of your authentic self. That's what makes the change stick. Because it's no longer cosmetic, it's coherent. In this space, healing isn't linear. You'll revisit old emotions, not because you're backsliding, but because the next layer is ready to be observed with a new level of presence. Triggers don't mean you've failed. They mean you've evolved enough to hold more of yourself with compassion. The goal isn't to be perfect. It's to be present. That's what collapses probability into power. And yes, you'll still have days when your frequency dips, when fear creeps back in, when you react instead of respond. But now you'll catch it faster. You'll observe it without judgment. And just by doing that, you're already shifting it. You're already upgrading your signal. This is what mastery looks like. Not control over life, but partnership with it. The real magic is this. Once you begin living the observer effect, you become a subtle revolution in a world obsessed with reaction. While others get pulled into chaos, you move with clarity. While others cling to outcomes, you anchor into alignment. Your energy speaks before you do. Your presence becomes your message. And the reality around you begins to reconfigure, not because you're demanding it, but because you've changed the blueprint it's responding to. There's no finish line here, only deeper levels of awareness, more refined frequencies, more subtle layers to observe and integrate. This work is infinite, but not exhausting. It's liberating, because you stop chasing what you already are and start expressing it instead. That's the gift. That's the invitation. And that's what the system never wanted you to know, that the moment you remember who you really are, the illusions fall apart, control loses its grip, fear stops working, and you become something untouchable, sovereign. Now imagine a world where millions live this way, where people aren't driven by unconscious pain, but by conscious presence, where leaders are frequency setters, not fear pushers, where communities are built on coherence, not conformity. That's not fantasy. That's what happens when enough people choose to observe, reflect, and shift together. If you've come this far, you know something is already shifting inside you. This isn't just knowledge, it's transmission. The truth doesn't just inform you, it awakens you. But don't stop here. Join the free Insights Academy newsletter, where we share the deeper layers of this work, the truths we can't always speak openly here. You'll receive a free ebook copy of the Kybalion, not as a reward but as a key, one that unlocks the principles behind all of this. The link is in the description. Don't sleep on it. In the end, living the observer effect means this: you stop reacting to life and start relating to it. You become a mirror master, a conscious architect of experience, no longer ruled by unconscious scripts but guided by inner alignment. Your awareness becomes the tuning fork for reality, and the more you refine it, the more the world responds, not with perfection, but with precision. If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it."